Warm welcome to Sardar Patel College of Engineering, Mumbai, and warm welcome to this TEQIP-III sponsored national level program.
Yes.
We will start in the next 2-3 minutes.
Yeah. You have 34 participants.
No,
34
sir.
participants?
We have received overwhelming response of 317 participations from 18 different states of India.
Yes.
And we have kept Google Meet and YouTube streaming live open for all. So in this Google Meet, we maximum 100 number of participants can join at a time, and the remaining participants can join on YouTube live streaming.
Okay.
Yeah. In the first session, there were around 81 participations, I think.
I see.
81 participations on Google Meet, and other participants were on the YouTube live streaming.
Okay. I'm live. Echo.
Hello, we will start now. I request organizing team to take a charge and move ahead. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes. A very good afternoon to one and all present. I warmly welcome you for the second session of the national level program on reforms in technical education perspective of national education policy, which is jointly organized by Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan Sardar Patel College of Engineering and Rewa College of Engineering in collaboration with IIIE and SA India Western Section, sponsored by TEQIP-III. It's my privilege to introduce you to our today's eminent speaker, Dr. R. Natrajan, sir. Dr. R. Natrajan sir served as the director of the Indian Institute of Technology Madras and as the chairman of All India Council for Technical Education. He has worked as a National Research Council postdoctoral research fellow in Canada and as a Humboldt Research Fellow in Germany. He was the vice president of the Indian National Academy of Engineering and the chairman of the Research Council of the Central Fuel Research Institute Dhanbad and was a member of India-China Eminent Persons Group. He has been conferred honorary doctorate degrees by the University of South Australia, Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University AP, Kanpur University UP, Nagarjuna University AP, Purvanchal University UP, and NIT Agartala. He has been a member of the editorial boards of Fuel London, Fuel Science and Technology, ASEE Journal of Engineering Education, International Journal of Engineering Education, Transformations in Engineering Education, Indian Journal of Technical Education and Staff, and Educational Development International, editor of the Journal of the Steam and Fuel Users Association of India and the Journal of Plant Engineering. So now I request you to share your views on the topic.
Thank you very much. There is some echo in the system. Can the organizers get rid of it? Okay. Oh, there's an echo.
Sir, may I request you to kindly use only one device?
I'm using only one device. Only the computer, PC. I'm only using one device. Can you hear me now? Uh-oh.
Sir, you are logged in from two different either devices or two different maybe the email ID, something like that. That's why there is a echo. Your name is highlighted 2 times.
Sir, now I think I have done it. I think the echo will be resolved now.
Okay, now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
it seems
sir.
to be okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. I will start with my presentation through PowerPoints. So what I'm going to speak about over the next hour and 20 minutes, and then I'll leave about 10 minutes for questions and discussion and so on. First of all, I will deal with the major highlights of the National Education Policy 2020 when the Cabinet approved it, and 2019 was the draft which was finalized. It is an official document of the Ministry of Human Resource Development, which is now called the Ministry of Education of the Government of India. Therefore, it is an official document. It has a vision statement. So it says that the National Education Policy, it envisions an India-centered education system. Each country has specific characteristics and requirements. Now, this is India-centered. It is expected to contribute directly to transforming our nation sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society. If you remember, about 10 years ago, we used to call it knowledge superpower. Now we have learned to be humble, and we are a knowledge society by providing high-quality education to all. I'll give you some history of the different education policies in our country. I heard Dr. Shivaprakash in the beginning of his speech, and then he spoke about a few of them. Here is a systematic description of the evolution of education policy in our country. If you remember, we got our independence on the 15th of August, 1947. Soon after that, in 1849, there was the University Education Commission, followed by a Secondary Education Commission, and then the very famous Kothari Commission, the Education Commission, during 64 to 66. And then the first so-called national policy on education was pronounced in 1968. And in 1976, a very important thing happened constitutionally. The 42nd constitutional amendment was approved, which made education a combined responsibility of both the state government as well as the central government. Both of them have equal stake in the evolution of the policy. Then in 1986, we announced the National Policy on Education, followed by a few modifications 6 years later, and also followed by the Program of Action. Then TSR Subramaniam Committee submitted its report in 2016. He was the cabinet secretary in the government, and it was under his leadership. And a lot of people were consulted. Now, subsequently, in 2019, the latest Kasturirangan Committee report was presented and accepted by the Parliament. We will take a look at many of the details of this Kasturirangan Committee report. They had extensive consultations. They put the policy on the portal. They received a lot of feedback. They consulted a whole lot of people. I don't know how many of you know that India has 22 official languages. We are a very complicated country in terms of education and every other thing. The summary was prepared in 22 languages, an audio book, and then dialogues were also had with MPs from different states and a special meeting of the Central Advisory Board on Education. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on HRD, it met on the 7th of November 2019, and it looked at the details of the education policy. What are the major reforms which are suggested by this policy? I will be looking at higher education sector. The school education, vocational education, I will leave out because our main interest, Sardar Patel College and others at the moment, is higher education. One of the objectives is to enhance the gross enrollment ratio by the year 2035, which is about 15 years later, by 50%. I will spend some time on one slide about what it means if you specify a percentage, 50%. What does it actually mean? Now, objective again is to create a holistic and multidisciplinary education system, multiple entry and exit, UG program of 3 or 4 years. Those of you who have been following the politics of education know that the University of Delhi, it proposed a 4-year undergraduate program. For whatever reason, they had good reasons to do this. There was an enormous amount of upheaval from the faculty and the students. They did not want it. The existing system is 3 years, but they did not want a 4-year system. They said it is made to dovetail into the US system of education. It has nothing to do with our national requirements and so on. But at the moment, the suggestion is 3 or 4-year program, PG program of 1 or 2 years, integrated 5-year bachelor's or master's programs, MPhil to be discontinued. Those who are in the humanities and social sciences divisions, they know that MPhil is an intermediate degree between the bachelor's and the PhD. It was necessary.
Sir, sorry to disturb you, but your PowerPoint presentation is not visible. Are you sharing the PowerPoint presentation?
Who?
Are you also presenting PPT?
Yes. Are you not seeing them?
No, I can't see that. Whether others can see that?
No, we are not seeing that.
Not visible.
You must make me the presenter.
Not visible.
Invisible.
Sir, please,
You
please
must
share.
make me the presenter.
Make sir as a presenter.
Okay.
You can present it, sir. You have to share it.
I know.
Share entire screen. Share entire screen option.
Here entire screen you can put the option.
Is it being shared? Make me the presenter.
Sir, at the right hand side, please go to the present now at the bottom right corner. Click it.
Yes.
Then you will get entire screen as an option.
Yes.
You please click that your entire screen as an option.
Done that.
Then, yeah, select it and click share as an option.
So I cannot.
You click the entire screen and then click share as option.
Are you able to see it? See it?
No, sir, not yet.
You have to click that entire screen as a, and after clicking, you please click share.
Now it is in shadow. I'm not able to click it.
Sir, you have to click that window which has appeared, a small window, and then the share option will be opened like.
Share your entire screen.
A small window would have there
1 second.
about the screen. Then,
Yes.
yeah, yes, sir. Now it is in transition. Now your screen is visible. Yes, sir.
Can you see the slide?
No, sir, not yet.
No.
Slide is open. Yeah, now the slide is visible.
Okay. Now, in the earlier 3 slides, I have actually indicated what I spoke about. There, I'll leave the slides with you. Therefore, you will have it available. I'm glad we caught this early. So now you can see the screen with my presentation.
Slide is
Am I
still
right?
not visible. PPT is still not visible.
Still not visible.
It's visible.
Your screen is still visible to the others.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
It's visible. Okay. Let us proceed. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, let me proceed now. So the major reforms that have been suggested, I have indicated them here. Now this 50% gross enrollment ratio, it has many implications. I'll talk about them later. Multiple entry exit, MPhil to be discontinued, credit transfer and academic bank of credits. And then in near every district, it is hoped that a MERU, Model Multidisciplinary Education and Research University, will be formed, will be established. Other major reforms, you can still see, right? Can you still see the slides?
Yes, sir. We are visible.
Okay,
We are able
good.
to see. Yes, sir.
Graded autonomy, which the UGC proposed a few years ago, that means in different phases, autonomy will be given. And the autonomy, as you know, has 3 components: academic autonomy, administrative, and financial. And another very important recommendation is to phase out the affiliation system. They have given themselves 15 years in order to do that. Is Sardar Patel affiliated to which university? Sardar Patel College of Engineering is affiliated to Mumbai University.
Mumbai University, sir. Mumbai
Yes.
University.
Now you will be made autonomous, and you will no longer have to work with the complicated bureaucratic system of affiliating universities. Then
Sir,
there
we are
will be a
autonomous. Sir, we are autonomous now.
now you're autonomous.
Yeah, we are.
Still your degree is given by Mumbai University.
Yes, but still degree is given by Mumbai University.
Mumbai University as an autonomous institution. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Another important recommendation is a single regulator for higher education. I'll talk about this in some detail. Public investment in the education sector to reach 6% of GDP at the earliest. It also has several implications, including the budget that was presented recently by Nirmala Sitharaman, where provisions for education were made, higher education, school education, and things like that. Important recommendation, a national research foundation to be established in order to coordinate and catalyze research and innovation. Internationalization of education, it has been a long pending matter of controversy that also is expected to be resolved by the new education policy, and so on. And another important recommendation, the MHRD, Ministry of Human Resource Development, to be renamed as Ministry of Education. You used to get letters from MHRD. The minister was called HRM, Human Resource Development Ministry, Minister, and so on. But now it is Ministry of Education. Officially, it has happened. There are some fundamental principles which guided the pronunciation of this policy. So they looked at the purpose of the education system. You will notice that there are many recommendations which are in line with what the Constitution of India demands. Here, the purpose of the education system, the words that are used here, that graduates possessing compassion and empathy, courage and resilience, they're related to our Constitution. And what does it want to do? It wants to produce engaged, productive, contributing citizens for building an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our Constitution. As I mentioned, constitutional requirements are being addressed. They also try to define what a good educational institution is. Your institution is probably already a good institution according to these four criteria, but if they are not, then you should try to fulfill these requirements. It's an institution in which every student feels welcomed and cared for, a safe and stimulating learning environment exists, wide range of learning experiences are offered, good infrastructure is available, and so on. So that, according to the policy, defines a good educational institution. So the goal of every educational institution should be to incorporate these characteristics. Do you have a strategic plan for Sardar Patel College of Engineering? Professor Rane? Do you have a strategic plan? I guess you can't hear, or maybe you're doing something different. So the strategic plan must incorporate these characteristics. Now,
sorry, sir, there are some network issues. You have asked me whether there is a strategic plan for Sardar Patel College of Engineering. Yes, sir, we have a strategic plan. We have already submitted it for the TEQIP-III, and we are implementing it nicely. And for TEQIP-IV also, we are going to prepare the proposal, and we are going to include all those precious inputs given in this program for implementation of a national education policy.
Yeah, strategic plan. Excuse me. Strategic plan. At the moment, it will not be in line with the education policy because the policy came only a few months ago. But every institution, through the Board of Governors, must state the mission, vision, goals of the institution, which forms a part of the overall strategic plan. Were you a member of the TEQIP? Were you a TEQIP institution earlier? If you were a TEQIP,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so you formulated an IDP, Institutional Development Plan, which is related to the strategic plan, but now you have to include the aspects of the national education policy which are considered to be important. Okay, we'll leave it there. So let me look at the higher education sector, not the school sector or the vocational sector. And the idea is to create a new and forward-looking vision for India's higher education system. Again, they talk about the properties or the qualities referred to by the Constitution, namely India to be made a democratic, just, socially conscious, etc., nation. And higher education, it is recognized, contributes to the public good. So this is a fundamental principle according to the UN principles. And therefore, higher education, who should pay for higher education? That is a question wherein these considerations come. So India is moving towards the knowledge economy and society. As I pointed out earlier, we used to call it knowledge superpower, but now we have learned to be humble, and it is a knowledge economy and society, economic implications, societal implications. They have also looked at the major problems currently faced by, for example, Sardar Patel College of Engineering and other colleges in the higher education system. So they mentioned a number of these constraints, and one of the important ones is a limited teacher and institutional autonomy. I've given other things. I'll leave the presentation with you. You can go into them. Then many changes have been proposed to the current system. So what are these changes? Here they have listed 5 of them. So at the moment, we have a large number of about 30,000 colleges and 1,000 universities and so on. But now, the future, we would like to have large multidisciplinary universities and colleges. Now, these terms will keep appearing often within the policy, so we must understand what these are. Multidisciplinary universities, essentially meaning you not only offer courses in engineering and science and technology, but also liberal studies, humanities and social sciences. So it will be a multidisciplinary university. This term will come often in the policy. And also, they want higher education to be offered in the local regional languages. This is a very important recommendation, and some efforts are being made. And yeah, I'm sure many of your students who come to your college from the school system, they might have studied in the regional language, but then they have to accommodate themselves into English language medium of instruction. But the policy states that every state must have at least one institution offering technical programs in the local languages. This is an important recommendation. How to do it is a problem, but they have already started trying to do this. So, faculty and institutional autonomy. You're an autonomous institution, but there are about 60 to 70% of the institutions in India, higher education institutions, are not autonomous. They are affiliated institutions. And the demand here is that all of them should be made autonomous within a period of 15 years and so on. As a TEQIP institution, your state government was expected to sign with the World Bank and the national government, the union government, saying that they would offer autonomy to all the institutions. But I have been a part of TEQIP for a number of years. And even towards the end of the program, now that the phase 3 is coming to an end, it's only about 30% of the institutions have been granted autonomy. Remember that autonomy is something to be given and something to be taken. It is to be given by the university and the state government, and it is to be taken by the concerned affiliating college. I have seen through our discussions and so on that there is reluctance on both sides, either to give it or to take it. On both sides, there is reluctance for whatever reason, and it has been a very tough issue to crack. And they want to offer to the students enhanced experiences. Important recommendation, a national research foundation to be established to coordinate research and to enhance the quality of research. And governance, which is again an important consideration. I will speak about it a little later on in terms of the TEQIP program. And light but tight regulation. This is again a term that keeps coming, this phrase. Light essentially meaning decrease in the number of regulations. Tight essentially meaning that whatever regulations are proposed, they will be enforced strictly. So that is the meaning of light but tight. So there come some other recommendations also. Now here is the crux of the issue regarding the regulatory system of higher education. They think that, they believe that at the moment the regulation is being heavy-handed, too much has been attempted to be regulated with too little effect. Since I was not a part of the announcement of the education policy, I have made reservations about, and also I've been the chairman of AICTE, which is a regulator for technical education. I may not agree with all that they say. However, what is being proposed is there are heavy concentrations of power within a few bodies. There are conflicting requirements by different regulatory body and so on. Therefore, they are suggesting a complete overhaul of the regulatory system. If you look at the system of overall regulation, it consists of four components: regulation, accreditation, funding, and academic standard setting. So for each of these four verticals, as they call them, they have established structures, enabling structures. There's one point that is made in the policy, even in the final policy, even though we pointed it out. They believe that accreditation should be the basis of regulation. So regulation will require some prerequisites, and according to the policy document, accreditation should be the basis. All of you will remember that there is a difference between regulation and accreditation. Regulation indicating the conditions for establishing an institution. Accreditation cannot be the basis for regulation for establishment of an institution, because accreditation takes place after 2 batches have graduated. It looks at the performance of the institution after it has been set up. So 2 batches have graduated, you will have enough evidence to show that the performance criteria have been fulfilled. So that, I believe, is a slip that's happened. However, these functions are important. And the overall umbrella organization will be the Higher Education Commission of India, to be established independently. So the acronym for that is HECI. It will have 4 verticals. The first vertical dealing with the regulation. So there will be a National Higher Education Regulatory Council, NHERC. It will be the single point regulator for higher education sector. It will exclude medical and legal education. Everything else will come under this one umbrella institution. Again, NHRC will be a regulator in the sense of light but tight regulation. I explained what that is expected to mean. The second vertical will be a meta-accrediting body, an overall accrediting body, and it will be called the National Accreditation Council, NAC. It is very different from NAC, NAAC, of which you must be aware, National Assessment and Accreditation Council. That is entirely different. This is a meta-accrediting body for all disciplines, etc., except for medical and legal education. And as in TEQIP, all higher educational institutions, HEIs, will develop institutional development plans, a 15-year plan. And accreditation itself will become a binary process according to the existing global practice. What this means is, if you look at NAC accreditation, there is a point-based accreditation, total 4 points, and then there are institutions which are ranked at different numbers between 0 and 4. And NBA accreditation used to be for 3 years and 5 years, and before that there was ABC and so on. Those things will go. The accreditation will now become yes or no. Yes, fulfilling all the necessary criteria, and no if some of them are not fulfilled. So these are the changes that have been proposed. The third vertical, we have looked at 2 verticals now. Regulation is one, accreditation is another. The third will be the Grants Council, which will enlarge the scope of the UGC as a grant-giving body. It will look at the funding and financing of higher education. The fourth vertical will be the General Education Council, and it will consist of at least 2 major components. Already we have the National Skills Qualification Framework. I'm sure some of you might have worked on the criteria here. That is the vocational education. Similarly, there will be a National Higher Education Qualification Framework, and these 2 will work in tandem to make flexibility between vocational stream and academic stream. In some of the Asian countries, you might know that there is a separate grades of vocational qualifications and academic qualifications, and it is possible to move from one framework to the other framework. So that is again something which is being proposed, so that the graduates that we prepare will be well-rounded learners with 21st century skills. What are 21st century skills? I will talk about it a little later, what kind of special qualifications these people must have. We'll talk about it a little bit. Then you have the professional councils. We have the Indian Council for Agricultural Research, National Council for Teacher Education, Council of Architecture, Pharmacy Council of India, and so on. They will all be given responsibility as professional standard-setting bodies. They will establish the standards the graduates must pass through in order to become practitioners of the profession. So they will have a limited role to play. At the moment, some of them have regulatory role, for example, Council of Architecture. So the idea here is they will act as advisors to the different requirements of curriculum, training, and so on, but they will have no regulatory role. Their importance is not being diminished, but the function of regulation is removed from them. Another important objective of the new education policy is curbing of commercialization of education. In India, the basic premise is that education is a not-for-profit enterprise. You cannot make money out of education. If there is an excess of income over expenditure, it has to be reinvested in the educational sector. It cannot be utilized as a profits. So this is, and both the regulatory functions and the accreditation functions, we have several criteria. They will all be strictly followed in order to make sure that there is no curbing, there's no commercialization of education. Another important principle for which means are provided are effective governance and leadership. In the TEQIP program, you know that when you wanted to evaluate the performance of the TEQIP program, you first looked at the quality of the undergraduates. You enhanced the quality of the undergraduate in terms of their employability. You also looked at the postgraduate education and research. And then it was realized that yes, an institution might possess all these good qualities. However, unless the governance is effective and the leadership that is provided to the higher education institutions is appropriate, then you cannot achieve excellence and quality. Therefore, here again, stress is made about the importance of effective governance and leadership. If you have been a TEQIP institution, you would have seen the green book, as we called it, which is the guidelines for effective governance, and you are also assessed on the quality of governance. So all those 56 or 58 pages of governance and leadership requirements, they are again incorporated into the new policy. Professional education. You are running a professional institution. You are creating engineers who are professionals, essentially meaning they contribute to the industry, the business, and other aspects of the profession. So they stress the fact that the professionals must receive education in the ethics and importance of public purpose. And for this to be achieved, they believe that a foundation in ethics and public good, the necessity for establishing the good practices in ethics and public purpose, they have to be incorporated. And standalone agricultural universities, legal, and as far as we are concerned, technical universities will be a thing of the past. No more establishment of new technical universities, new medical universities, or new health science universities. All of them will be transformed through a period of time into, again, multidisciplinary institutions offering holistic and multidisciplinary education. These are the characteristics. So by 2030, they expect that all professional institutions will become a part of multidisciplinary educational institution. That's again another important recommendation. Now, since we have had to contend with COVID-19, you know that many things are happening online. For example, this particular seminar would have taken place in physical space and time in your institution, me coming there and addressing a group of faculty members in an auditorium. But that is completely replaced by this online means, and we see that it is possible to do it, however, with some constraints and difficulties. But since we may have to move into post-COVID conditions where online and digital education will become important, so they look at the importance of online and digital education. When you are talking about this, there is a huge problem. And the problem is that of the divides, the technology divide, the access to devices, and the people being trained to teach using these new technologies. So ensuring equitable use of technology, you have to change many things that, and we have managed to do that. For example, this particular seminar is taking place through digital means, online means. And they're talking about several teaching platforms and tools, including the making available the best teaching and learning resources to all, irrespective of where they are situated. So they're going to make use of the existing SWAYAM platform. SWAYAM, as you know, is a Hindi acronym stands for, it is a MOOCs platform, Study Webs of Active Learning for Young Aspiring Minds. That is the acronym, SWAYAM, that's what it represents. It indicates clearly what the tools are, what the means are. Similarly, there is another platform, Diksha, which is a teacher enablement platform, and that also will be extensively utilized in order to, make things available. And the digital divide, you will realize that not all schools, not all regions have equal or similar access to technology or technology tools. So how do you address them? 40 years ago, ISRO conducted an experiment, SITE, Satellite Instructional Television Experiment, where they used black and white television and radio and community radio for offering educational programs to people, particularly in the Mufassil areas, in the rural areas. It was a grand success. It was possible to do that using the satellite, but now we have many more technology platforms, and how to address the digital divide, how to make sure that a person, irrespective, a student, irrespective of where he is situated, is able to get the same kind of resources, including assessment. Online assessment is not an easy thing. So for online assessment, they have an acronym here, PARAK, Performance, Assessment, Review, and Analysis for Holistic Development, which basically means you have to design the systems and you have to design the tools. So these things are proposed. So these are some details of what has been proposed. But the most important thing in order to achieve the results proposed is implementation. And unless you implement your programs, your results will not be achievable. So they have spent a considerable amount of time. A lot of work has been done. I will indicate some ideas on what some of the things have been done. The policy was proposed and accepted during the early part of 2020. And beyond that, a lot of things have happened. I want to now push in some ideas of PM Modi and also of Dr. Kasturirangan, who was the chairman of the committee which proposed this policy. When PM Modi was releasing this policy, he said that the difference between the new policy and the old policy is as follows. The old policy focused on what to think. The new policy focuses on how to think. So it is a fundamental difference. It is research and technology focused. It talks about quality education. You may enhance the GER, but is the quality also simultaneously enhanced? That is a question that has to be answered. In principle, it cannot be so, but we have to try to make sure that the two of them converge. We also talked about APJ Abdul Kalam's dream of providing education to make quality human beings. A very noble thought. And how do you do it? You have to understand. He also talked about the importance of teachers. The cliche he used was when a teacher learns and teaches, the nation leads. And higher education institutions should actually mentor other less endowed institutions so that uniformly you can provide both quality and excellence. Classes in mother tongue, the recommendation is that until the 5th grade, the students should be taught in their mother tongue. Many of you might have been taught in the school, during your school education in Marathi and Hindi probably. I learned until the secondary school leaving program in my regional language, and I was able to make up for any deficiencies when we came to the college. Therefore, it is possible to do that. It is a difficult task though. Multiple exit options being provided. Germany is a country where, for example, the first 2 years, which is called Vordiplom, VOR, Vordiplom, and then beyond that, you can have, you can leave the institution, go and work in industry, do whatever else you can do, and then come back and rejoin the program. So something similar is being suggested for our country also. Dr. Kasturirangan was asked a number of questions by several magazines and newspapers on the rationale for doing many things. And I'm listing out a number of these things for you to understand why certain things were proposed and why certain things are planned to be done. What were the main objectives of a revamp of the entire structure? And this morning, Shivaprakash was also talking about the time period of 34 years since we had the last policy. So, objectives of the revamp. And he says transforming and creating a dynamic education system is fundamental. Lots of things have changed, technology, for example, the educational requirements, the industry requirements, and so on. And you cannot remain static. You have to respond to these demands. You have said that we need to have an open-minded approach. What does that mean? What is an open-minded approach? So he talks about the fact that we no longer can learn things in watertight compartments. He gives the example of a chartered accountant cannot just study finance. He needs to study economics. He needs to study politics. So there needs to be diversity, and NEP 2020 offers this flexibility. A major recommendation it is asked is to allow foreign universities to set up campuses in India. Will the powerful private college university lobby allow it to be implemented? So he points out that it is not talking about FDI, but we are looking at the top 100 and world-class Ivy League institutions, and we have to learn from the best practices of these institutions, which have been recognized to have excellence and quality. Then the number of seats in premier institutions like IITs, national law schools, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, a whole lot of them, the premier institutions, the total number of seats is still small compared to the population of a country like India. So the question is, if you increase the number of seats, will it dilute quality? Well, the easy answer is no, both the quality and the quantity must be increased. How to do it is the issue. He points out that we have 900 universities under UGC and several other colleges and vocational institutions. So the idea is to reconfigure the entire system. Even IITs, for example, he points out that they should become large multidisciplinary university. At the moment, the student population, undergraduate population in an IIT is, for instance, 6,000 or so. So he's talking about a total population of 20,000. Many of the institutions of excellence worldwide, the Harvards and the MITs and so on, they have about 20,000 to 30,000 students. So enhance the size of these institutions, but of course, without diluting the quality. That is the answer he has given. Yeah. Then about the mother tongue or local language as a medium of instruction. In a large country like India with various hues, political hues governing the different parts of the country, political parties, you realize that it is a huge, huge problem. So he gives a rather neutral answer saying, well, learning in mother tongue is easier for younger children. Therefore, he talks about the three-language formula. You know that the entire country, we don't have a three-language formula. In some parts, we only have a two-language formula, the regional language and English. And three-language formula includes Hindi as the national language. It is still a matter of contention. A state like Tamil Nadu, for example, has not accepted Hindi as the third language. Now, what about the teachers? Without good teachers, you cannot have good education. So what are we trying to do with teacher recruitment and teacher training? So this is a structural recommendation regarding the structure of teacher education. It will become a part of the overall higher education system in the country, meaning now we have teacher training institutes and teacher training colleges. There's a separate regulatory agency, NCTE. So recommendation is that it will be a part of the overall higher education system, and therefore it has the benefit of interacting with other branches of education. Next question. Yeah, I'll skip the next one. It's another. No, let me go back. Rote learning. How do you avoid rote learning? Now, all of you have come to recognize the importance of outcomes-based education through the program of accreditation. NBA demands that you should define your learning outcomes for each of these programs, and then you should ensure, you should demonstrate that these outcomes are being met. So that is the point that is being made here. So how do you think we can get our colleges to do world-class research? If you realize it, no institutions in India is a part of the top 100 in the global ranking of higher education institutions, whether it is the Cocker-Simons QS system or the THE Times Higher Education rankings. So it is a matter of shame for us that even though we have a large size of population and students, none of our institutions is a part of the top 100. So he addresses this question. He says that the research in our universities is a little highly unsatisfactory. I must say it is dismal. So the question is, why is it unsatisfactory and how do we make it better than what it is today? Many suggestions have been made. Even our best institutions, they're not a part of the top 100. Now, here is an important detail. The reason why some of the terms that we have not been used to, for example, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary institutions and so on, something similar to what is available in the US system of education is because of the orientation given by one of the architects of the plan, Dr. Manjul Bhargava. He is a Fields Medal winner. We know that physics, chemistry, and so on, we have the Nobel Prizes. The equivalent prize in mathematics is the Fields Medal. Nobel, who instituted those awards, did not have one for mathematics, and therefore it had to be established separately, and that is the Fields Medal. So he's a brilliant mathematician, and he's a professor at Princeton University. He actually took a year's leave to spend a year working on the NEP. So many of his ideas have rubbed on to the policy document here. So he pointed out that there is need for more multidisciplinary education, the term multidisciplinary. We must unleash the interdisciplinary creativity of the student. I'm sure all of you have the practice of Googling for information that you don't have with you. So Google multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. There are other classifications also, transdisciplinary. So find out what the basic differences are. As the name suggests, multidisciplinary means into this aspect of education that we are looking at, there are many different disciplines which come into play. Interdisciplinary is between established discipline. You look at the interface and what happens there is interdisciplinary. In a simple way, I've mentioned that. Take a look at, do a Google search and find out. So 21st century skills I talked about, some of the subjects which are becoming important, you know that your students know this because when they want to get jobs, they have to train themselves and you have to offer instruction in these aspects. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, design thinking, holistic health, organic living, environmental education, global citizenship education at relevant stages. Therefore, these are all important subjects which are on the horizon, and we have to train our students in order that they become useful and employable. So Manjul Bhargava had an important role to play in shaping some of the ideas of this education policy. Let me offer my own comments about this education policy in some detail. What is the need for a national education policy? So it gives an opportunity to review the past, what have been the earlier reports, what have they recommended, how many of them we have been able to implement, and what are the implications, why we have not been able to implement some of the most important recommendations. If we can take a look at them. We also can look at the contemporary requirements for industry and business and for citizenship. and we can chart out a future which is in consonance with the emerging global environment and national aspirations. The last 1986 policy actually introduced at least two major reforms. One, it combined technical and management education. Till then, they were entirely different, but now it made them an interdisciplinary area of study, technical and management education. It created the AICTE. Before that, AICTE was an advisory body, but this policy created AICTE as a body, statutory body. It also created the NAC and NBA. Till then, we did not have accreditation systems for quality assurance. Therefore, these policies have extremely important implications and they can make major changes. The major intent of NAP 220, in a nutshell, is to revamp or restructure the higher education system, create world-class multidisciplinary higher education institutions, increase the gross enrollment ratio. Again, I'll come to the important discussion on what it means and what it does not mean, to at least 50% by 2035. I'll ask questions and then I'll answer them. And the guiding goals are access, equity, etc. Ultimately, all the 900 universities and 40,000 colleges we have at the moment, idea is to restructure them into 15,000 high-quality, large, multidisciplinary institutions. And they will be classified into three types. One is combining research and teaching in different proportions. Type 1, with primary focus on research, like the Indian Institute of Science and the IISERs, Indian Institutes of Science, Education and Research. Type 2 will focus on both research and teaching. For example, your own institution combines research and teaching. And type 3 focusing essentially on teaching, the so-called affiliated colleges. So these are some recommendations. A case has been made for liberal studies. Liberal studies is, for example, your humanities, arts, social sciences, and things like that. The recommendation is that they should be increased up to 25%. I have a certain amount of reservation about this. As a rule, our curricula, engineering curricula incorporate about 15% liberal studies. And why it should be increased to 25% and what happens to our technical studies. Our 15% liberal studies we already have. Let me give examples so that you understand what it means. We have courses on engineering ethics, professional ethics, environment science and technology, civics, according to the Supreme Court judgment, the Constitution, sustainability, and so on. So, do we have the luxury of increasing this 15% to 25%? That's a question to be debated. On the other side, now we are living in a technological age. We are used to technology devices, technology services, such as net banking, word processing, and so on, and also technology devices. So my contention is that we should introduce the technological literacy to general learners, importance of technology literacy, which seems to be more important than trying to introduce more liberal studies into an already cramped technology curriculum. So that is my view in any case. And the transition from the old to the new should be a smooth one with no disruptions. The policy should reflect continuity with change. And it should include Indian cultural traditions. Our engineers are solving Indian problems with background of what existed earlier, which is related to the culture of that age and cultural of that region. So we must keep that in mind. Again, some of your mechanical engineers must remember that we wanted to change the fuel burning devices in the rural regions where they used to use the wood, for instance, or the straw, for instance, and then try to introduce them to first kerosene stoves and then even high efficiency wood stoves. And then, of course, now we have the LPG and so on. The devices that were created, wood burning stoves or the kerosene burning stoves, we wanted to improve the efficiency and then reduce the pollution. You have to take into account the local requirements and the local earlier practices and so on. And only if the two tallied with the people ready to accept these technologies. So that is an important consideration. The policy must combine national aspirations over the overall country as well as the regional interests, which depend heavily on the type of region that we are talking about. We should also look at the future and the future student and how to train them to be global learners. When 1986 NEP was formulated, it was followed by a program of action. Again, the importance of implementation. If you just make a policy, it will remain on paper. And if you want to derive the benefit from the formulation of that policy, you need to make sure that it is implemented properly. Now let me come to this important aspect of these percentages that we talk about of GDP. So recommendation is that 6% of GDP should be provided for in the budget. So what is the GDP? Does it remain constant through time, through the different years that we are talking about? And what is meant by enhanced GER? So let me go through some of these details here. The budgetary allocation, it comes to overall education sector, but the sector is not homogeneous. We have the school sector, we have the higher education sector, vocational sector, and maybe others. So this 6% that we are talking about, is it in the school sector, higher education sector, vocational sector? How do you distribute it within the overall educational sector into these three components? That is a problem to be sorted out. Contributions of state and central governments. I said that a constitutional amendment was made to make education appear in the concurrent list, which basically means the state has responsibility and the center has responsibility. How much of each? When the salary scales are announced, as you know, the central government scales, they are implemented almost immediately. The state governments do not have as much funds. So for the first 5 years, the center gives assistance to the state. Subsequently, they are expected to become self-sufficient in order to bear the responsibility. A similar problem is occurring now under TEQIP. TEQIP, we spent a lot of money. It was a program where the finances were committed by the World Bank, an equal amount by the central government, and with a caveat that subsequently, after the completion of the program, the state governments will assume the financial burden and the financial responsibility. Now the third phase 3 is also coming to an end, and therefore the burden the state government is not able to take. So teachers are really worried, and they are writing letters to the ministers and the chief prime minister saying that all the benefits that we enjoyed, because essentially it was a contract kind of an appointment. So now the state governments must take up, and the state governments don't have the funds. You also remember you're obliged to set up 4 funds, and this is essentially to carry on the project even after the completion of the project. This never happens. So that is a serious issue with the TEQIP teachers. They are saying, we have been trained to be highly efficient teachers, but then what is going to happen to our future? Now, if you enhance the GER, there are consequential requirements. Teachers, for instance, and infrastructure, for example. So where does the money come from? And the public versus private sector contributions. When the government takes up a program, it is a government program, but then there are many private institutions. What happens to them? And there are enabling policies, constraining policies, quality and excellence issues. Tomorrow I'll speak about these issues in an explicit fashion, and benchmarking, again, I'll explain what it is tomorrow. Global versus national rankings and implementations. Apart from that, now what does the enhancement of GER means? It means increasing the number of educated students in that particular age range. Now, yes, you increase the numbers, but what about the quality? Are they all of the same quality? Obviously not. So what are the implications? And what about jobs for those who graduate from these programs? In Europe, for instance, there was increased GDP. However, the number of jobs did not increase, and they called it the jobless growth. We are in that situation now. we have huge unemployment problems. The other important issue is when we talk about percentages, the percentage is 6% is, everybody talks about. Does that mean the amount that is required is, if it was 6% at 10 years ago or 6% now, are the amounts the same? The GDP increases with time. The purchase power parity varies with time. Therefore, even though the percentage may be the same, the amounts are different. And when you spend money, it is the amounts, not the percentages. So these are important considerations that one has to look into. That is the GDP and the GER, the conundrums relating to those. Now, I mentioned that implementation is extremely important. Let us take a look at the implementation issues and the plans. And the government has done well to face this problem with a number of programs. There's a lot of detail here, and I want you to recognize that. So, for about an hour, I've spoken about the basic policy requirement. Now comes the important concepts of implementation. First of all, we are going through a pandemic crisis, and even otherwise, we have other sectors which require funds also. Defense, for example, environment, energy. Education is not the only sector for which the government is responsible. So there are trade-offs between different sectors: health, environment, infrastructure, defense, and so on. Also, there are trade-offs between quality and excellence and quantity and scaling up. We are a country which is increasing in population, and therefore more and more learners are coming into the system. Merit and equity, the reservation difficulties that we are having. For example, one of the states has increased for the local people 75% of reservation. What are the implications of this? Fund allocation for education and other requirements I talked about. So you need to balance the different demands, and requires wisdom and pragmatism. Now, for example, it's a real challenge to enhance the GER and simultaneously ensure the quality of offerings. Now, let's take a look at what the government has done recently over the past 20, 30 years, setting up of new IITs and NITs. The Chinese Prime Minister came to India about 30 years ago, and he came to our institute when I was director of IIT Madras. And he boasted, well, how many IITs do you have in this country? Well, okay, 10, 15 at that time. So he said, we're going to have 100. They believe in quantity. So Indian government also has been progressively increasing the number of IITs and the number of NITs. Initially, when you set them up, you don't have resources, particularly human resources in terms of trained and qualified teachers. So what the suggestion was that every new IIT or new NIT will have a mentor IIT, an existing IIT which has faced several challenges and come across as an institution of excellence. So for the first 5 years, these IITs to be handheld by existing IITs. And similarly, a number of them were set up, and I was in a review committee for looking at new IITs. Pleasantly surprised that when people have commitment and when people have convergent goals, then it is possible to achieve success even in a short period of time, particularly with the help of mentor institutions. So they talked about adopting villages and adopting less endowed institutions and so on, in terms of other institutions. But in the case of IITs and NITs, it has actually worked. In fact, in some cases, the new IITs had a higher rank than the old IITs. Another interesting observation I would like to give you. In the case of NITs, when we interviewed the persons for directorship, and we asked them, what do you want your institution to be? Because you're a new institution. So they said, we want to be like the IITs. They are the higher level institutions. So we want to achieve the same level of excellence as the IITs. When the new IIT directors were being appointed, when the same question was asked to them, majority of them said, we don't want to be like the old IITs. We want to chart out our own new paths of doing things differently and in a better fashion. Remember that these people were already working in existing IITs. So give you some examples. One of the IITs, the new IIT, started postgraduate programs first and then the undergraduate programs. So the different models were proposed and they wanted to do things differently because they had the experience of working in an older IIT. So things can happen, good things can happen. And I hope that it will happen in the higher education sector and other sectors also. So this question of a percentage of GDP, some people say at the moment we spend 1.5%, some people say we spend 3%, but in any case, several committees are that fixed upon this number of 6%. Why? Many advanced countries, it is a minimum of 6% that is spent on education. You must remember that education is a resource-intensive sector. It requires a lot of funds, and the returns are not very visible in the short term. And I say that without vitamin M, M meaning money, I think much can be achieved. The second is the faculty crunch. At the moment, overall, we have a 30% faculty shortage for various reasons. State governments, for example, have banned the recruitment of new faculty members. You know that in your own states. So how do you address this faculty crunch? Not only numbers, but also the qualifications. You cannot always be working on a catch-up mode. So we will appoint faculty members with only an MTech, and then we'll provide them opportunities for PhD. It doesn't work. Look at the new NITs which have been set up. When they specified that for every new entrant will have a PhD when he enters the institution, then things improved. Various things have to be done for that, but in any case, things improved. So it is a tremendous challenge. The other challenge is we have to enhance the respectability of the teaching profession. If you look at your bright undergraduates, they neither want to come to research nor to come to teaching. For various reasons, more attractive jobs are available in industry and business. That is one of the reasons. And the other important reason is that we used to consider teachers as respectable citizens in the society. No longer. We're all company people, 9 to 5 kind of workers. So unless that changes to a level where teachers are respected as people who inspire the students, who deal with progress and development of the country, unless that aspect is focused on, we will not have young people coming into the teaching profession. And also the importance of governance and leadership pointed it out. And if you are a TEQIP institution, we had produced a TEQIP Good Governance Guide, the green book of about 60 pages. Some of your heads of departments need to go through that to realize what actually constitutes good governance. And without good governance, let me tell you, you will not achieve excellence. Another important relationship is the one between educational institutions and industry. I point out that it is a symbiotic and synergistic relationship. Symbiosis means we need each other. Industry needs us and we need industry. Synergistic means if we work together, we can achieve much more than if we work singly, alone. Therefore, it has a major impact on the effectiveness of both the industry as well as the educational institution. Now let me give you a reality check on NEP 2020. People have identified that there are 6 major challenges in implementation. Let me spend a couple of minutes on the first and the second. So we want to increase the GER, right? We want to double the GER in higher education. We will assume, we accept that it is about 3% now. It has to be increased to 6%. What are the implications? In 15 years, what do we have to do? At the moment, we have 1,000 universities across the country. So if you want to double the GER, what it means is, in actual practice, you must open 1 new university every week. And for how long? For the next 15 years. Every one of those 15 years, we must open 1 new university every week. Do you think it's possible? Therefore, do you think we can double the gross enrollment ratio? Second, what about the school sector? It is approximately the same problem. The NEP 2020 intends to bring 2 crore children who are currently not in schools back into the school system. So what it means is, over the next 15 years, we must set up around 50 schools every week. Possible? Third challenge is the funds problem. In the COVID era, we have a severe problem competing sectors and whether we can provide extra money to the education sector. In the budget that has been announced, not much extra money has been provided for. In fact, in some sectors, they say that the money has been cut off, money has been reduced. So the execution speed of the requirements of the education policy will come down, and things will take longer than what we think that they will take. We need to create a large pool of trained teachers, not only teachers, qualified teachers, but also trained teachers. Then interdisciplinary higher education demands a cultural shift. We have all been used to working in departments in silos. Excuse me. So can we work in interdisciplinary mode? A completely different kind of outlook is required. A lot of training and reimagining things has to take place. Now, in another analysis, the implementation timelines of 11 key NEP recommendations in the school and higher education sectors has been examined. The Secretary of Education, Khare, he pointed out that many of the reforms do not require extra funds, but what they require is a new way of thinking, redesigned, reimagining ways of doing things. For example, this multiple entry and multiple exit is not related to funding. What it means is by restructuring our program in modular fashion and have credit system, a meta accrediting body, credit bank, so that a student can study in different institutions, but then gain the credits and then bank it in a central agency, which is being proposed now. So that has to be done. So reorganization of existing systems. So in terms of higher education, the multiple exit and entry points, when will they be available? They say 2020, 21. Then 4-year degree program for by this year, 2021, it will be introduced in central universities and for others by 2022. And when will they start offering undergraduate degree program either of 3 or 4-year duration? They're working on the details. A certificate after completing 1 year, which in a discipline including vocational and professional areas, a diploma after 2 years, a bachelor's degree after 3 years, and a 4-year multidisciplinary bachelor program. They're all expected to be introduced through legislation and so on as soon as possible. There will be an academic bank of credit, ABC they call it, and that will document the students getting credits from different institutions and streamline the process of granting of degrees. And what about entrance tests? They are expecting to come up with final decisions through the National Testing Agency, NTA, by March 2021, which is, we are actually in March 2021, and I haven't seen any notification at the moment, but as soon as possible. And this is a perennial problem. How do you eliminate the need for taking coaching for these entrance examinations? So completely different models are required. Again, this is something that on which work has started. And what about Indian institutions setting up campuses abroad and allowing foreign universities to set up campuses in India? Implementations are not clear, they are working out their modalities. And soon, at the moment, there are a few foreign universities which have set up campuses in India. Again, if you Google, if you look at the internet, you will see a few of them have been established. And here, the idea is to have a much larger number to be established in India. And similarly, Indian institutions establishing campuses abroad. As you know, in Dubai, several existing institutions, Birla Institute of Technology, for instance, has one, MIT has a couple, and so on. So Indian institutions have established campuses abroad, both at school level and as well as college level. So how do you allow this to be enhanced in such a fashion that the true benefits are obtained? Then achieving 50% GER, how are we going to do this? So the numbers I've spoken about, now it means two things. You can either increase the student strength in existing institutions, or you can enhance the total number of institutions. Both the strategies are required in order to enhance GER. And there will be a national professional standard for teachers. Once you do that, teachers can be qualified according to these standards. They will be available for institutions to draw upon the numbers. And the NRF, the work is in progress. Another good thing that is happening is, first of all, it has to be done through an act of parliament, which basically means all the parties have to come together. And it will have 4 major divisions. That, I think, is a rational classification: for sciences, for technologies, social sciences, and humanities and arts. Now, another important recommendation is that groups of experts need to come together for implementation of the new education policy. And the suggested terms of reference is by an expert group, a think tank, or as follows. How do you do this? Develop implementation plans for each initiative, and so on. So that is the idea. Then one important point here is a study by the Fortune magazine showed that 90% of unsuccessful strategies worldwide, they owe it to a single most important cause. Things we expect what should happen haven't happened. Why? Weak execution, bad implementation. Therefore, when you make recommendations, you should make implementable recommendations. And once you have made them, make sure you come up with strategies for implementation. Now, NEP 2020 may not achieve all the results that it expects to achieve because of 4 contributors. Overly optimistic expectations. You think too many things will happen, and in a short period of time, highly optimistic but irrational expectations. Implementation of dispersed governance. You have state government and the central government and so on. Inadequate collaborative policy making. You don't come together by making detailed policies. Vagaries of the political cycle. Elections come and governments change, and then their ideas change. Their commitment to implementation of the policy also changes. This is one think tank that has suggested a 5-point implementation plan. So the second half of my presentation, I mentioned to you that I'll focus on the implementation issues. And the PM should set up a task force on higher education reform. It should happen at the highest level. That is one recommendation. Second, there should be a standing committee consisting of vice chancellors of universities and directors of institutes, which will work with the Ministry of Education in trying to implement many of the suggested policy changes. There should be a National Education Ministers' Council, again because education is on the concurrent list. You must have both the state ministers as well as the union ministers coming together in order to think of solutions. Integrating institutions of eminence with NEP. About 20 institutions, 10 in the private sector and 10 in the public sector, have been characterized as institutions of excellence, and which basically means you have excess capabilities to make changes. They should work with implementers of NEP in order to combine your strengths to achieve the required results. Some of the examples of institutions of eminence in the private public sector or some of the IITs. And in the private sector, unfortunately, they have also classified the institutions as greenfield institutions and existing institutions. Institutions which have not been set up yet, they have characterized them as the institutions of eminence. How is that possible? It is under severe criticism. Then they set up a National Higher Education Philanthropy Council. In advanced countries, the philanthropy is an important contributor to the funding of these institutions. Some of them have billions of dollars contributed by donors. In India, slowly, people with money, people with conviction, they are setting up educational institutions. One example is the Azim Premji University in Bangalore, for instance. So philanthropists must come together in larger numbers in order to help in the promotion of higher education. Then, in conclusion, what we need to do, according to me and to some of the other think tanks, is create stakeholder incentives. Give incentives to stakeholders so that they can contribute to the achievement of the policy directions. Formulate instruments in the form of legal, policy, regulatory, and institutional mechanisms. Build reliable information repositories. Develop adaptability across HEIs. Develop credibility through transparent actions and participation of all stakeholders. Particularly in India, parents attach a great deal of importance to education of their children. We have heard stories of even people without too much money, they're investing all their funds in the education of their children by taking loans, by sacrificing some of the requirements and so on. Therefore, we attach a great deal of importance to education. So you provide incentives and you establish credibility, then we will achieve results and develop sound principles of management. Management is nothing but adopting fundamental principles in order to manage your resources, physical resources, financial resources, and so on. Therefore, while a lot of time has been spent, 34 years, in formulating a new policy, and by and large it has been accepted, except for a few required changes. So if we work together in a reasonable period of time, through all the sectors working in unison, then results will be achieved. So I will stop here and we'll spend maybe the next 15-20 minutes on your ideas, your discussions, your questions, and so on, so that it becomes an interactive session. So let me stop here, Professor Santosh Rane, and look for ideas.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for a highly informative and session and the precious inputs given by you in the perspective of national education policy and the reforms expected in the technical education sector. Now I would like to invite the views and some questions by the participants. First, I would like to invite Dr. Ajay Kumar Kambekar to say a few words and also ask some questions if at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. I still remember my first meeting with you at Hyderabad.
I'm listening to.
Yeah, I first met you during the draft committee course which you arranged at Engineering Staff College of Hyderabad.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have gone through this policy, sir, draft policy, and also the implementation.
Yes.
Yeah, and it is, I would like to know about because there are a lot of confusion about the diploma and degree. Since there is a clear-cut policies mentioning about if the student is completing 1 year, then student will get certificate course. If student is completing 2 years, means diploma or advanced diploma. if 3 years means degree or 4 years means degree. But the question is, what will happen to the polytechnics? Whether they will be merged with degree institution or they will run as isolated independent institutions.
I do not believe that the existing structure will be changed in such a fashion that the difference between the polytechnic and the college will disappear. It will not. There are distinctive structures for the diploma programs and for the degree programs. What is being tried, I believe, is to provide the flexibility for people to move across and in between different types of institutions and programs. Even the vocational and the academic streams, they are planning to establish transferability. It is to enable the learners not to be constrained by the institutions in which they are present now. As it is, as you know, once a person completes a diploma, there is he can join an engineering institute college at the second year level. So a credit is given to the diploma program that he has gone through. So such flexibilities, particularly if you are talking about a number of institutions providing credit-based courses to the students to collect them through a bank and then ultimately qualify for the granting of a degree. So this is an enabler.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Dr.
Professor Rane, if you permit, I'll have one more question. Because
Okay, sir, we will come back to you, sir. Let others also ask some.
Let him finish his question.
Yeah. So,
can I, or after some time?
yes, just wait for a few seconds. Now I would like to invite Dr. Reshma Raskar, madam, to say a few words about the session and ask some questions if at all. Dr. Reshma Raskar.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, madam.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Sir, the session was extremely brainstorming, I could say. So you have very nicely pointed out the challenges that India is going to face towards adopting or towards implementation of this NEP 2020, where you have rightly pointed about GER, the gross enrollment ratio, and which we aim towards 50% by 2030. And I also agree to it because NEP 2020 is a need looking towards the SDG. So my question to you is about any policies or any procedures regarding this multidisciplinary universities. As you said, IIT is going to be into multidisciplinary and all. So, sir, is there any concluding or a strong implementation or towards the policy and framework for India?
As I pointed out, the government has tasked the higher education institutions, particularly the IOEs, institutions of eminence, to work towards the fulfillment of the policy requirements. Similarly, all the universities, the vice chancellors have been asked to hold seminars, workshops, brainstorming sessions, and so on. Each of them to come up with individual recommendations and again the resources required to achieve the result. And all of them will take place both in a according to me, my understanding, both in a decentralized fashion as well as in a centralized fashion through the 4 verticals of the Higher Education Commission of India. So everybody is made responsible, and probably there will be a competitive analysis of the different proposals, and then funding will be provided, timelines will be given in order that in a reasonable period of time, all the recommendations, implementable recommendations are implemented.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I would like to request Dr. Anil Ghadge, sir, from Sardar Patel College of Engineering to to say few words about the session and also ask some questions if at all? Okay, sir. Thanks for the prompt response. We also have Dr. Vaibhav, sir. I would like to request Dr. Vaibhav, sir, for saying some few words about the session and also ask the question. Dr. Vaibhav, are you there? Okay, fine. Dr. Kambekar, please ask the question. You have some questions.
Yeah, sir. Good afternoon. I have a question rather than one. I need some clarity on that, sir. The reforms are talking about the industry institute interaction, in which the institutions are told to, educational institutions are told to take inputs from industry experts. So we have industry institution consultation committees in which we are taking inputs from the industry. So what is my rather suggestion is it possible vice versa also, that few faculties will be working as a member of policy makings in industry? So that there will be a two-way traffic between decision making.
This is an excellent question what is asked by Dr. Kambekar. I also believe in the same, because till date we have understood that there is only one-way traffic since last means after independence, and industry do not have the faculty members on their own boards, and till date we are at the only recipient side, and we are not at the giver side. We are not on their boards. So this is a very important question asked by Dr. Kambekar. That's what I feel. So let us go ahead with this answer. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you seem to have made up your mind that it is not two-way traffic, it is only one-way traffic. Whereas I am aware of the fact that if you are useful to industry, do you think that they would leave you alone? They would definitely want you to take part in their activities in order to, enhance their goals and things like that. And personally, I know, and I have been on many industry organizations also. But if they consider you useful, definitely they will come. And there are so many invited lectures for industry people, particularly related to the practical aspects of technology. If somebody has invented something, he has made an innovation, created an innovation, he is in constant demand by industry to come and explain to them, come and make sure how they can work together in order to derive benefit from the innovation. So I believe that you are a bit constrained in your thinking about the importance given to faculty members by industry. But if they consider you useful to achieve their goals, they will not leave you. They will be at your door.
Yeah,
so
sir. Yeah.
Please look at the Centers for Sponsored Research and Industrial Consultancy, SRIC or ICSR, of the 30 odd IITs that exist, plus a number of NITs. Look at the number of collaborations they have had. Therefore, I do not believe that you are, right in assuming that it is one-way traffic. 30%.
Sir, I would like to add something here.
Yeah, please.
Sir, if you permit me.
Yes, please go ahead.
So when we talk about collaboration, that is right. But the thing is, they want tailor-made students who can just be for their industry.
Exactly.
Their focus is not on overall development of the students. What they want a product for themselves. That is what we feel.
May I suggest that you are not right in your assumption. Please look at the successful collaborations which have given benefit to both the industry and the institution. Typically in NITs and IITs, 30% of the total budget comes from sponsored research and industrial consultancy. So please broaden your scope of thinking, then you can see the live successful stories.
Yes, sir, I agree with that. But then there are just a few group of students. There are so many colleges which are not IITs and NIITs. So they are left like that.
I will tell you a little story which probably will give you a better perspective on what is happening. When I was the chairman of AICTE, in the 4 regions, we collaborated with the CII, Confederation of Indian Industry, who have sections all over the place. In Maharashtra, for example, they have a number of very active groups. And we decided that we would have 4 workshops and seminars in the 4 regions, north, south, east, west, and so on. And the local state education minister who inaugurated each of these workshops. Now, we put one condition about industry people will not talk about what they expect from the institutions. They will only bring to the table what they can do for the institutions. In a similar manner, the institutions will not ask or not talk about what the industries can do for them, but they will only talk about what they can offer to the industry. Please have a workshop with all your active faculty members who have industry-related products or processes or continuing education programs. Invite industry people to come and listen to you and let them bring to the table what problems they want solved in those particular industries. Have about 3 or 4 meetings and you will come up with people who are ready to take up projects and you will come up with topic ideas. And then from there you can move forward. That is how, for example, I can only take the example of an IIT or the IIT in which I was the director. We had similar centers of ISRO, defense, and atomic energy. These are the 3 strategic sectors. We had active centers in our institute. So you need to work hard. You have to commit resources. You commit time, which is the most important thing that the industry demands. They say we go to professor and want something solved, and he said he's busy with exams, he's busy with this and that. Time is of no importance to faculty members. For them, time is of essence. So there are issues here, I agree, but you must come together to sort out the issues, and it can be done. There are hundreds of success stories.
Yeah, that is true, sir. Thanks a lot for your, we will definitely look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The speaker for the next session, Vice Chancellor Professor Parvinder Singh, he already joined. And sir,
okay,
am I audible?
I will leave. Thank you.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for your precious inputs.
And I'll see you again tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Namaskar, Professor Parvinder Singh. Namaskar.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar, sir. Sir, we'll start your session at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Our official time for the session is at 3 o'clock.
Right.
So, till that time, we can wait. Otherwise, we can have
And, it was very interesting to listen to Ramamurthy ji. It was excellent talk by you, and we are thankful to this very Sardar College of Patel College of Engineering organizing this event and giving us the platform to interact with the wisdom luminaries, including the Ramamurthy Natrajan ji and many others to follow today and tomorrow. So I am thankful to the management, to the principal, to the management of this college, who had really connected the north, south, east, and west. And many people, they have already registered. So that shows the curiosity and anxiety to be connected with you. So we will wait till 3 o'clock, Santosh Rane.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We will exactly start at 3 o'clock in official.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, fine.
Hello. Before that, may I take up one question, sir? Hello.
Question to whom?
I want to answer one question. Actually, the question was asked by Mr. Anil Gadge.
Okay.
and I think that was not that remained unanswered. He had asked political instability as well as center-state coordination going to affect the implementation of NEP. So, being an advocate, I would give a legal perspective on that. Actually, education is a subject in the concurrent list in the 7th schedule of the Constitution. So there are powers of central government as well as the state government. So whenever there is some problem of say center-state coordination, then the courts try to solve it as per the law. That is, what are the say legislative and executive powers of the center, what are the powers of the state, and normally first they try to create a harmonious construction. Particularly the problem becomes acute when there are say practically the governments of different parties at the center and at the state. So at that time, because we have the concept of rule of law in this country, so whenever the matters go to the court, then the high courts and the Supreme Court try to solve these say conflicts by as per the constitution and the competence of the different legislatures and the executive government. Conflict like that, then these things have to be taken into account. Further, we have the concept of all India service India. That is, we not have the central services as well as the state services, but there is something called AIS, and these AIS officers are those who have been reporting. That is IAS, IPS, and Indian Forest Services. So they report directly and they communicate directly with the state government as well as the central government. So these officers have a crucial role to play where there are say different governments of different parties at the center and the state that might affect the center-state coordination, because they have to go not as per the say views of the particular political party, but they are expected to behave as per the law. And then at the executive level, these IAS, IPS, and IFS officers try to solve these problems. So particularly the education falls within the purview of IAS, because the education secretaries also come under the IAS cadre. So they try to solve this issue of center-state coordination. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We will take a break now for the next few minutes, and we will exactly start at 3 o'clock. Happy learning to everybody.